Hail Mary, full of grace. Ryland Grace! Hi, I'm Michael Evers, and Fit to be Read is with thee. And today, I'm reviewing Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Three books come to mind while reading Project Hail Mary. Contact, because of the worldwide project and prepping for interstellar travel. Left Hand of Darkness, because of the relationship between two very different individuals on a common journey. And not surprisingly, The Martian, considering it's the same writer and the main protagonist feels very similar in both stories. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that I'm trying out this darker lighting and this red light back here, very loosely referencing the darkened spaceship and the mentions of infrared lighting in the book. A reach? Yes. But let's roll with it. In Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, the Earth is facing an extinction-level crisis. Their greatest and only hope is Ryland Grace, a junior high school science teacher. Grace is not aware of this at first. As we first meet him in an unknown and unfamiliar setting, he can't even remember his name. His surroundings make no sense to him. Right away, this is interesting, and it's easy to engage with the story. True to form for good sci-fi, we don't know exactly what's going on, but it's not at all a barrier to being sucked right into the story. We watch as he struggles to piece things together and to find out if he's going to indeed be the savior of his species. Also, the clock is ticking. This extinction level event I mentioned, it has an expiration date of about 30 years. This book gives us first contact, interstellar travel, suspense, science and engineering, and at least one very interesting relationship. The book is very enjoyable. I definitely recommend it. The story hums along nicely and conveniently for 2/3 of the book. Grace is very resourceful. Any issue that comes up, and luckily for the reader, there are many, they're resolved. Any danger is tackled. Every question gets answered, and there never seems to be a severe sense of panic or overwhelming concern. At times, it feels as if significant scientific problems are presented that seem hard to solve, but in fact, they're not really problems, and they have obvious, to the scientist, solutions that are not necessarily revolutionary. One such item that comes to mind is a section on gravity and centrifuges. Grace finds it reminiscent of the Apollo spacecraft. This isn't spoiling anything, but those who've read the book will know the section that I'm referencing. The final third of the novel evolves from this with some good suspense, surprises, and high-stakes crisis. Hail Mary Project is fit to be read for a number of reasons, especially the well-crafted relationship and venture between the two main characters, and the really great development of a suspenseful first contact moment. If you haven't read the book yet, and you're glad I didn't spoil it, I hope you enjoyed the ride, because now come the spoilers and 5 of my selected likes and dislikes for Project Hail Mary. For those of you that have read the book, I want to just take a quick aside, and before I get into the list, I want to present this very random thought for the comments section. In the book, Grace burns the side of his face on Rocky's wall, and he's definitely going to be scarred. I know it's an odd consideration, but it's just something that came in my mind. Knowing it's a one-way trip, what weight would vanity carry, do you think? Scarring and physical deformity? At the time, Grace has no expectation of surviving the trip. Based on that, does any no-stakes aesthetic deformity cause distress during the quiet moments for somebody who's in that situation? You know, he's going to have these quiet moments in space where he's just waiting and going from point A to point B. I'm curious if anyone has any interesting insights on that. Dislike number 1, Eva Stratton, the FBI agents under her direction, come to enlist a junior high school teacher because he wrote one debunked paper theorizing about how people were wrong about life requiring water, and now he's the must-have expert on evaluating some other form of life. The forced participation is cliche, and our being asked to buy in that he's the guy is rushed, and it's presumed without being earned. Had this been released in the 90s, the film version might have Nicolas Cage written all over this role. Some parts early in the book are a bit hokey, and at first the storytelling is really more compelling than the science. Again, I'm not sold on them choosing him. And then there's even that small part where he comes back to the guarded facility after he left the first time, and he's able to walk past the US Army soldiers. Should we have stopped him? Of course they couldn't stop him. He was in the midst of an aha moment, and he was walking with purpose. What further clearance would he possibly need, right? The story cleans up as it progresses, but even still, we see him put in charge of setting up the building of the breeding facility. I'm not saying I know enough to determine if that makes sense, but it really feels like those cop shows where the forensics person is in the lab and that's the star of the show, but then they're also going out to solve crimes, they're on the scene, they're busting down doors, because we can't just have them sitting in the lab, doing their job. If they do that the whole show, it's going to be a boring show. That's what it felt like. There's just too much of him not staying in his lane. Dislike number 2. There's some unusual pacing in the beginning of the book. He meets Eva Stratt, who tells him he's recruited and he has no choice, and the FBI forces his compliance. He leaves this first encounter. He heads back to his apartment where the FBI then whisks him away to an abandoned building. In the next paragraph, he enters this new lab, and we're told right in the middle of it all was, wait for it, Eva Stratt. It was as if we hadn't just met her a page ago. Enough didn't happen in the few paragraphs previous for us to say, oh look, Eva Stratt shows up again. She's at the center of this. I mean, we just met her 2 seconds ago. Like number 1, Weir is great with dialogue. Not like, wow, great dialogue. It just feels real without feeling forced. I detest when an author shoots for authentic and misses the mark and you see the failed attempts at real and relatable. Weir's dialogue feels very, very natural. Dislike number 3, the astrophage reproduction discovery. Why didn't somebody else figure that out quickly? I'm just a personal trainer, okay, but I'm thinking maybe if I'm with generic scientists and we're spitballing ideas in the lab, we might have caught this discovery in about 30 minutes. And while I'm at it, in the obvious things category, Grace is told early on that Tau Ceti is near the center of the infected stars, and it's not infected. So Eva Stratt and the Russian scientist Dmitry Komarov, they explain that they're making a ship and they're going to go investigate why. It seems as if there should have been at least some lip service given to the idea or the possibility that astrophage was maybe some sort of a biological attack from a planet that was near Tau Ceti. We know that it wasn't, but it seemed like an obvious issue to have been raised. Like number 2, great balance and pace between the fill-in-the-blanks segments and the present-day mission segments. The flashbacks come at the right moments, and they usually have purpose. Like number 3, the moment of first contact with Rocky is an obvious like. So riveting, the anticipation, we're so connected to this moment. I'm even mildly panicking about little things like I'm hoping Grace can get a nap, and I'm concerned for his need to sleep. I thought this moment was handled really, really well. Like number 4, there are some really neat descriptions here of both basic science and inventive science. Speaking to the math of famine, we get a very simple yet intriguing description of the calculation of calories the world creates with farming and agriculture, and then divided by the general caloric need of the human population, and then trumping that, the description of Iridian physiology, from bones of honeycombed metallic alloys to nerves of inorganic silicates transmitting light-based impulses. In Ryland Grace's words, Iridian physiology is frankly amazing. Dislike number 4, for me the story's not set far enough into the future to believe red tape and bureaucracy wouldn't get in Stratt's way more than her free reign seems to indicate. This can also be a get over yourself moment for me, as I might be picking too many nits. I'm raising the issue here, yes, but it wasn't really hard for me to abandon this concern and just accept that this was the world that we were in and the story that we're reading. Dislike number 5, the passage introducing Dubois and Shapiro's sexual relationship. This is gratuitous and did not serve the story. Of course it sets up their death later during the explosion, but the first mention of it just felt forced and it's a different tone than the rest of the book. Had it been consistent to the tone of the book, I think I could have appreciated the moment a little bit more. Like number 5, at least it's not the middle finger, Rocky and Grace, or Rocky and Weir. They're so fun and comfortable. This is a book that could run much longer just based on their friendship. It's fresh, interesting, and even humorous. The time spent developing their friendship and their commitment to each other, it gives the story a really great heart. So much so that I even overlooked the overuse of their, oh duh, why didn't I think of that moments. Even thinking back to the novel now a couple of weeks after I finished reading it, I'm nostalgic to go back and eavesdrop on this relationship, to eavesdrop on this friendship. Project Hail Mary was a very good read, and it ended brilliantly. While I wish Grace had gone home to get a hero's welcome and experience the reaction from Strad and others, the ending on Arid was really just perfect. Teaching the class, and even the comfortable and the more fluid dialogue with Rocky evolved really well. I recommend this book highly. It's a very satisfying read. I'm Michael Leverts. This is Fit to be Read. Please like, please subscribe, click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you.